Never forget the OG Battle Royale. Battle Royale, which we would not have everything else in this genre without Battle Royale.
If you've been consuming any type of media in the last 2 decades, whether it's movies, TV shows, anime, or video games.
Any chance of watching the sequel at some point? The sequel is a sequel that we don't talk about. You know how when a film, when the OG film is so great, is so iconic, and then the follow-up is... And to be fair, Kinji Fukasaku only shot one scene before he passed from prostate cancer. So his son, who wrote it, completed the film. But it is incredibly inferior. And it's something where it's like you don't need to see it.
I'm sure you're familiar.
There's no Battle Royale 2. There's no Old Boy remake. Yeah. See, this is a type of sequel where you're like, it actually doesn't exist. It has an interesting idea of letting the kids go full terrorist on the U.S. and then just exists to show more kids dying for entertainment. Yeah. It's just really, really not close to the first one.
These 2 words. The dead game where a large group of people is forced to kill each other until only one remains. But long before the likes of Squid Game and the Hunger Games, before Fortnite, PUBG or Danganronpa, there was an original battle for survival in Japan. And it all began with a 21-year-old journalist who had a twisted dream one day. In this mental image he saw a teacher grinning in front of the class and telling them today's assignment: to kill each other. This chilling contrast stayed with him for years, and he knew he had to explore this story. Little did he, or anyone he told about it, suspect how much of a cultural impact this simple premise would have in the decades to come. His name is Koushun Takami, the author of the best-selling 1999 novel Battle Royale, his only published novel to date. The rules are simple.
Wait. The author of Battle Royale had only one novel published to date, and it's Battle Royale.
On an island, 42 students have 3 days to fight.
That's kind of fucking
one
rad.
is left standing. They are each given a random weapon from a bag filled with survival tools and a collar around
One
their
and
necks
done?
that will explode if they try to escape or break the rules. With pistols, knives, sickles, stun guns, bow and arrow, or for the less fortunate ones, with only a paper fan, binoculars, or a pot lid. They have to strategize, cooperate, deceive or murder their classmates before the deadline. Like most things, even Takami's story had its predecessors. As he admitted, one of his favorites was Stephen King's The Long Walk, where a totalitarian government holds a deadly walking contest. And the name Battle Royale originally comes from pro wrestling, which Takami was a fan of. So in his mind, the entertaining concept of a series of fights filled with short-term alliances between unique characters until the last man standing started him on his path to write a masterpiece. A story that was rejected from the 1997 Japan Horror Fiction Awards due to its violent themes.
The Japan Horror Fiction Awards was like, yeah, this is too fucked up. Sorry, it's too violent. Kids having to kill kids.
Students murdering each other on a deserted island. Perhaps for exactly the controversy surrounding it after its release, the novel became a bestseller in Japan. This led to adaptations both as a 15-volume manga series that expands on the story and a film that eventually created an entire new subgenre. The movie version ended up on the table of director Kinji Fukasaku, who with his long background in Yakuza films knew how to approach.
Oh, also before more people peace out, put a 1 in chat if this was your first time seeing Battle Royale. I always forget to ask, but one's in chat if this is your first time. Put a BR in chat if you have seen this film so many times. Okay, we got a lot of ones. We got a lot of ones and a lot of BRs, because this is one of those films you watch it and you go, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch that again, and then you watch it again, and then you watch it again.
The extreme violence of the source material. But Fukasaku's reason to make his version wasn't just the shocking image of a dark nightmarish teenage death game. Like the school kids in the story, Kinji Fukasaku was only 15 years old himself in 1945 during the last stretch of World War II, when he was forced to work in a
Where can I request a movie? I don't do movie requests because it's one thing that I like to, as kind of like the film class teacher, I like to show films that have a lot of meaning for me or that I think are important films in film history. But you can always suggest stuff. You can always suggest stuff in the Discord.
ammunition factory along with his peers to support the deadly war machine of Imperial Japan. One day the factory was bombed, and while he was lucky,
She hates
almost
us and
everyone
she
else,
hates Shrek
including his
too.
best friend, perished that day in front of his eyes. From then on, Fukasaku held a grudge against adults and had a strong anti-authoritarian view for his whole life. And this is what Battle Royale is at its core. It's not a twisted game where people kill each other for entertainment or money, but the fight against the helplessness of a generation forced into misery by a higher power.
Yeah.
The reaction to the traumas of the 20th century, a reminder that while anyone forced into a corner can turn into a deadly wild animal fighting for their survival, we have to prevent it in any way possible. Fukasaku's film adaptation stirred just as much controversy as Takami's novel did in the previous year, and even got an R15 rating in Japan, which meant no one under the age of 16 could watch it. Which is ironic, considering many of the actors were around that age during shooting. The director encouraged students to sneak into screenings, because in his eyes, it's a fable that can teach all of us something about the dark parts of our humanity, and even reflect on the growing youth crimes of Japan at the time. The clash with the government and stricter regulations around violent films, especially including
Cayenne
underage
Pepper,
characters,
thank you so much for the
was
5
partly due to
gifted.
the recent rise in crimes involving teenagers. Young biker gangs terrorizing civilians, a rising number of kids seeing their future in the Yakuza, and events such as the Kobe child murders, which were committed by a 14-year-old student, were all signs of deeper issues. In the 90s, Japan faced a big economic crisis, when the so-called bubble economy burst, and the image of a thriving country turned out to be built on lies. Trust between generations broke down.
Yeah, and it's like when the youth are behaving in concerning ways, whether acts of violence or just kind of general signs of being troubled. Do you think that that happens in a vacuum? Do you think that the kids wake up and decide to just be like, yeah, I'm going to be a little shit fuck? No. That is a reaction to the systems that they are experiencing with such negative consequences. You know, it's similarly with how people still don't understand the fact that groups like Hamas have so many young people, so many kids practically who fight in, you know, who sign up and are part of Hamas, because many of them are orphaned, because all they know is a life of violence, and all they can do is try and fight their way through that. They are reacting to an incredibly violent system that has been forced on them from the moment they were born, from when their parents were born, from what their grandparents experienced when they were ethnically cleansed in 1948. 85% of Qassam brigades are orphans. Yep.
The older generation was blamed for corruption and mismanagement, while the younger generation was scapegoated for rising social issues. Millions lost their vision for the future, and Battle Royale served as a response to that. The film also faced issues globally, especially in the US, where it was not released officially for more than a decade, despite the great interest and praise it got from
Hunter S. Thompson wrote this a week after 9/11, and I think about it almost every day. We are at war now, according to President Bush, and I take him at his word. He also says this war might last for a very long time. Generals and military scholars will tell you that 8 or 10 years is actually not such a long time in the span of human history, which is no doubt true. But history also tells us that 10 years of martial law and a wartime economy are going to feel like a lifetime to people who are in their 20s today. The poor bastards of what will forever be known as Generation Z, many of you in here, are doomed to be the first generation of Americans who will grow up with a lower standard of living than their parents enjoyed. That is extremely heavy news, and it will take a while for it to sink in. The 22 babies born in New York City while the World Trade Center burned will never know what they missed. The last half of the 20th century will seem like a wild party for rich kids compared to what's coming now. The party is over, folks. Yeah, I mean, when you are like in the United States of America, a member of Gen Z or younger, more and more so, your reality is just utter violence everywhere being committed by your government. And there is all this moral panic right now around kids, and people want to associate it with the internet. And bad faith right-wing groups and individuals are using those anxieties and those fears to push these really harmful pieces of legislation that are disguised as like saving the kids and for child safety, but is really just to increase censorship and surveillance. And the thing is that kids are experiencing mental health issues. Kids are experiencing high levels of depression and anxiety. And rather than going, yeah, it's the internet that causes that, I wish people would go, what else is happening here that may be contributing to kids feeling this way? And maybe for some of them who struggle even more with mental health problems, it's exacerbated from their online, from their online usage. But it's the new, it's the video games. The video games are making kids violent. Yeah. Oh, they said this about radio, television. It's all making the kids violent. It's all making them depressed. You don't think it is potentially the reality of the world that kids are growing up in? And because we are all so connected now, and because we live in a modern technological age, kids are more and more aware and aware constantly of terrible things that are happening. That was such a fantastic film night choice, Kelly. I feel like all of us need to see this, the movie, the backstories, and all the deep dives. It's so good.
The limited screenings.
Oh,
and
sorry, I
bootleg
didn't realize
copies
Tarantino was on the
circling in
screen.
the early 2000s.
Sorry.
I remember finding it in the early days of YouTube.
I was so scared of shootings in high school. By college, I was desensitized enough to go to class even when there were armed suspects in the area, genuinely more worried about my grades. Yeah, because it's so normalized. Because you're like, well, the adults aren't doing anything about this, and this is how it goes. So I either just have to adapt. I just have to deal with this normal reality, or I can't keep going about things. Like what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Not go to school? Not go out in public?
Anything over 10 minutes was split into parts. My teenage eyes glued to the screen, clicking through parts of a poor quality copy with fan-made subtitles, when I barely knew any English, much less Japanese. Simple times. Despite the difficulties around its release and the issues with foreign distribution due to censorship, the movie was a financial success, and Battle Royale soon became a cultural phenomenon. The story depicts a time close to our own, but one where the youth is in revolt against the authority of adults. In the original novel and the manga, we are presented with a dystopian alternate universe where Germany and its ally Japan won World War II, becoming a totalitarian militaristic country called the Republic of Greater East Asia, where the Battle Royale Act is created. These two works, in contrast to the film, also contain much more explicit scenes of violence and sex, which were changed and toned down during the adaptation process. We are also introduced to a different head teacher who, while still murderous, is much less cruel and perverted. Fukasaku even changed his name to match the vision he saw for the teacher. That's how Sakamochi became Kitano.
Kitano! Kitano?
Played by the director, actor and comedian Takeshi Kitano, who was simply asked to be himself.
Hi, konnichiwa!
He reflects the film's central contrast through his dark humor, subdued demeanor, and childlike behavior that can turn violent in an instant. That same tonal clash defines the film itself. Think of the cutesy government-produced guide to mass murder. Or announcing the names of the dead students every few hours, set to a calm, uplifting classical piece. It's a disturbing juxtaposition that captures the film's approach to violence, and one that later works like Squid Game clearly took inspiration from. In many ways, these comical, almost cartoonish moments and rough, unrealistic
Rosalie, I'm just going to give you a quote that I want you to think about. And it's a quote by Asada Shakur, who said, "Nobody in the world, nobody in history has ever gotten their freedom by appealing to the moral sense of the people who are oppressing them." If you think that Hamas is the first time that a group of oppressed people have responded by resisting violently, then you need to go back into history. You need to go look at the slave revolts. You need to go look at what happened in apartheid South Africa. You need to look at what Jews during World War II did with the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. If you think that people throughout history have ever achieved their freedom by appealing to the moral sense of their oppressor, they haven't, because that does not exist. In World War II, you had the entirety of the world going to war. Hamas hates gay people. See there it is though. There it always is. There it always is. Someone will come in and say, "Look, I'm not on Israel's side, but let me give you any excuse to which I need you to know. I need you to know, and this is not me making things up. This is not me deciding it. This is how power works. That you are still then actually on the side of Israel. Because what that is still is justification for the party that has complete power and control and has for the last almost 80 years and is using that to currently genocide the Palestinian people. That is justification for that. It is. And see, every time, I try and answer thoughtfully. I'm like, hey, let me just throw a quote at you. Let me just have you think about this for a second. It's always the but. Hamas hates gay people. Okay, fine. Say Hamas hates gay people. Do you know how many gay Palestinians Israel has killed? Because Israel has killed so many Palestinians. You know, the whole Hamas would throw you from the roof. There aren't roofs because Israel has destroyed, leveled almost the entirety of Gaza. Do you think that people can fight for social liberties when they are experiencing genocide? Truly. I just need you just think about that. Use a little bit of logic. When a people have been under a system of everyday discrimination and oppression, a system of apartheid, when they are occupied by a military that has the state authority to steal their land, to shut off their electricity, to kill them, to shoot children who are throwing rocks at tanks, there is no ability to advocate for gay rights when the reality is that all Palestinians are struggling for the basic right to survive, to live, and to live without this incredibly oppressive, powerful nation breathing down their necks, controlling every facet of their lives. Also, let's talk about fucking gay and trans rights in the United States. Do you think it's all perfect here with our big democracy in the US? See, now I'm pissed. Now I'm pissed. You know, these motherfuckers want to act as if the United States is all perfect here, let alone what the US is doing globally. Okay, let alone what the United States is doing to Cuba, does to the global south, does to the Middle East. Let's just take a look domestically here. They are passing legislation that has put trans people in the early stages of genocide. Okay, if you are trans in the United States of America, you are not free. And they are looking at going after gay rights, like gay marriage, because the ultimate goal is to walk back all progress. It's why they got rid of the federal right to abortion, why they turn everything over to the states. So get the fuck out of here. Get out of here.
Characterizations make Battle Royale much less serious and dangerous than many of its early critics claimed. The slogan on the original Japanese poster already hints at the strange and ridiculous contrast of innocent students being thrown into a game like this. This is beautifully reflected in the lighthouse scene, which according to Takami was inspired by John Carpenter's The Thing, where the protagonist Shuya finds himself being treated by some of the girls from his class after an injury. The lighthouse is the safe haven of these girls, who like many others try to survive together and not participate in the bloody game.
Devastating
but their pacifist
sequence.
system breaks down and ends up in a massacre when one of the girls tried to poison Shuya's lunch, only to end up killing one of her girlfriends. The trust that the lighthouse was built on.
And one thing that I want to mention too is a theme in Battle Royale, which is that paranoia and surveillance and authoritarian control is designed to destroy solidarity. That when people are infected with that sense of paranoia, that they will turn on one another.
It's destroyed in a moment, and the doubts and fear take over. And one by one, they all end up in the void of the program. Just a few more names on the list, announced while munching on the homemade cookies of one of the students. While the depiction of violence is extreme, it's not focused on gore. Instead, it breaks down the human psyche when fear and instincts for survival take over. That's why it's often compared to Golding's Lord of the Flies, which shows how even kids are prone to building hierarchies and becoming cruel. Battle Royale is rough around the edges because it's not trying to be pedantic, preachy, or realistic. It accepts that the detailed exploration of more than 40 people is not
Night,
feasible.
Micah.
So the characters become archetypes, often recognized by their weapons and outfit. The runner, the girl with the sickle, the mysterious psychopath, or in some cases they are handled in groups. The rebelling hacker group, the girls in the lighthouse, the bullies on the beach, the suicidal lovers, the pacifist fair with the megaphone, and the list goes on. It's a simple solution to a problem many filmmakers are facing when adapting a novel into a 2-hour movie. But even if they are on screen only for a few minutes, the movie is filled with iconic characters and scenes. No wonder Chiaki Kuriyama, the actress playing the sprinter Chigusa, was asked by Tarantino to play the young henchman Gogo in his Kill Bill films. A character who is clearly influenced by both Chigusa along with the seductive and merciless killer Mitsuko. Battle Royale is often misunderstood because it doesn't fit into the frame of any genre, especially when we think of how important its cultural background is, which doesn't always translate well. The trauma of the war, the atomic bombs, and the crisis of new generations in the latter half of the 20th century is ingrained in Japanese culture. The film has elements of campy horror and action flicks while reflecting on social issues and the inherent psychological aspects of humans. Like its pro wrestling namesake, Battle Royale is a spectacle where we, the viewers, have an unspoken agreement with the performers. We know it's not real, but we suspend our disbelief and play along. And if we buy into it, we get a chaotic carnival of mayhem from a weird and terrifying cast of characters, who all have their own backgrounds and battles and bonds, who love and destroy and shoot and slash through thick forests and desolate buildings, soaked in blood and rain, moving from zone to zone until there's nowhere else to escape the approaching hellfire. And the only choice you're left with is to kill your best friend or die by their hands.
Ooh. That was a great little video on Battle Royale. When a Japanese film started a worldwide phenomenon, some real fire writing in there. Can you explain the painting? Yeah, so the painting is all the dead kids with Noriko in the middle, because Noriko is the only one that teacher doesn't think deserves to die, and has her depicted as an angel. And as he mentioned too, teacher character is even more diabolical and evil in the book. They kind of changed some things up with the film version of his character, but yeah. Speaking of how BR inspired video games, did you know that the last thing director Kinji Fukusaku did before his death in 2003 was direct the horror game Clock Tower 3 for Capcom? Really? Oh, so he was working on the sequel and then also did Clock Tower 3. Will recently said he couldn't think of the movie you showed him. Did you show him this? I did not show him this. We both had come to this film on our own individually, but I showed him Jennifer's Body, which he couldn't remember until I reminded him of that. So I did show him JB, which y'all know is one of my faves.